What's going on, y'all? It's Sae'Von, aka the Vegan Heathen. I hope everybody's blessed. I hope everybody's balanced. Today, we're gonna talk about song structure. Why does song structure? Why does song structure matter? It's been around for a long time. I know it's not the most glamorous, it ain't the sexiest topic in all of music, but it is important. It's important for one reason to realize that the song structure is the order that's given to the chaos and entropy that is the creative production process, right? On top of that, we got to keep in mind that we living in 2020 and we living in the streaming age, baby. A lot of folks may not discuss it or be consciously aware of it, but songs are getting shorter because artists are trying to play the content game and they want to push out a volume of songs. No longer is the concern for most artists making the best song in the world. And I admit, for a while this was my pursuit. I admit, to this day, it is still often my pursuit, but I do understand and realize that the bulk of artists, they need shorter songs, man. Short and simple. So with that being said, with a shorter song means something gotta go. What are we cutting out? We cutting out the intro, we cutting out the bridge, we cutting out a hook, we cutting out a verse. What are we doing, right? So I wanted to help you all out, and by doing that, I'm gonna pull up Ableton, hop in there, and I'm gonna show y'all how I go about structuring a song in 2020. Let's check it out. All right, y'all. So we're in Ableton Live right now, and hopefully the very first thing that maybe jumps out to y'all is that the structure of the song is literally written out. So no secret, we're gonna be diving way deeper than just the outright structure in this video. So the structure, we have an 8-bar intro, then we have 16-bar verse, 16-bar hook, another verse, another hook, then we have a breakdown for 8 bars, and then we have the last hook for 16 again. So as I said, this video we're gonna talk about a lot more of the nuances and kind of the big picture principles for really structuring a story. All right, so yeah, your song's a song, but if you begin to approach your music, or really any creative art, but your music with a approach of a storyteller, I think it's just gonna make a lot of other things fall into place. Because when you tell a story, there's a shape and a contour to that story. In the same way that you look at this song and you look at the outline, you can see that there's a little bit less happening, then some more, then a lot more, then a little bit less, but a little bit more than the first time. And then, so just these changes that happen, and we're gonna dive in a little bit deeper. So the first tip I have for y'all is just organize yourselves, because now at a glance, I can click any of these playheads and it'll play that segment of the song. And if you wanna add them, then you just scroll right above where you could add the final or the first MIDI or audio track, and you right click and you hit add locator, but you gotta make sure this little speaker is showing, otherwise it won't actually give you the option to add it there. And then you can just call it whatever you want. So add locator, whatever, right? And then if you want to delete it, right click it again and hit delete. So something you can actually do is you can pull in a song that you like, and so this is another song of mine, and you'll start to get to the point where you kind of look at it and kind of tell what's going on, but you can say, all right, that's the intro, this is where the first drop happens, and then this is some sort of change, and then there's another change here, and just be able to look at it, and you can put those markers in for whatever song that you want to reproduce in terms of how it's actually structured. So the verse, bridge, all that, right? The simple stuff. So once again, we have intro, verse, hook, breakdown, hook, end. Now very easily that could have changed and been intro, hook, verse, breakdown, hook, but it's up to you, right? But I knew what the intention was with the story I wanted to tell with this particular track. And with that, I knew that the main focus was going to be the kind of A being between different vibes, low key and high key, right? So, not actually key, maybe I shouldn't use the word key, but low energy to high energy, right? So there are 3 main ways that you can go about affecting the contour of your track, the story, right? You have the density of what's going on. So is it a more Spartan segment of the track, or is it a denser segment? And then you also have groove and frequency distribution. So let's go ahead, let's jump in a little bit further, right? So intro, this is where I'm setting the scene, and this is what it sounds like. So notice there's not a lot going on. I just wanted to set the stage Okay, so once you are dealing with your intro, you have now placed things in a state where your listener is going to either be validated or invalidated. And what I mean by that is that you're either going to satisfy their expectation of what is now going to happen in your story, or you're going to do something that they weren't anticipating, right? And in either instance, you're going to build on intrigue. Specifically, a lot of times, if you divert from what you think that they are going to expect, if you do too much diversion, then you can turn somebody off. But if you do it just the right way, it really sets it up so that when you really drop into the track, it just hits that much harder, right? So that's something to keep in mind. Now, once we drop into the verse, you'll notice that we have a very Spartan arrangement here. So that's one of the other elements I spoke about, and we play with that. And what we actually want to do is reward the listener for sticking with the song. So one way that you can do that is basically just switch things up every so often. So every 15 seconds, 30 seconds, there should be something new going on that the listener has not heard, up to that point. And so the way that I do it in this first verse is that I play with the frequency distribution and I play with the groove. So let me show you what I mean. Okay, so obviously it's a very, very low end, rich, low end, heavy, open, very, very open verse. And then when we bring in this guitar, it just starts to bring in another part of the groove. So whereas people were rocking a certain way before, now the guitar drops in and it's like, oh, okay. So that's how we're grooving. And so now we've played with the groove, but also this is a higher frequency element that wasn't previously in the song. And even though this is still the verse, we're rewarding that listener, we're shaping that story, right? So then we come into the first hook. Okay, and this works for a couple different reasons. For one, we're building on the same motif that we established with the guitar. Right now, it's a different guitar, a little bit different of a rhythm, a little bit different of a melody, but it's building on it. And aside from that, the biggest thing that we'll notice is that the groove really comes in earnest because we have the drums actually drop in. Up to this point, we're almost a minute into the song, about 48, 49 seconds into the track, and there have been no drums up to this point. Now, a lot of people, they go, oh, there's a no, but it depends on what your intention is. And I knew that when I was working on the song, because keep in mind, I'm the artist that's going to be on it, so I do have a little bit of an advantage there, but I knew that I wanted to just have a bigger payoff when the groove first locks in. So that's playing with groove, that's playing with density, and that's playing with frequency distribution. So we have that kick come in, and then we have the snare, which is a lot more high end, snap and crunch, and we have the continuation of the guitar motif. And then we go to the second verse, and it's pretty much the same as the very first one, but just notice that for one, we drop this out, whereas prior, that carried over, we drop that out, and then we bring in something different. So okay, so a couple of things we work together. We have the risers for the first time since the very intro. So this adds to tension. And so you want to play with tension and release in your compositions. So we have this riser that, so when you hear it, it tells you to expect something, right? And once again, we're either going to satisfy expectations or we're going to subvert them. So then what we have is we drop in. And up to this part, we had only heard a male vocal. So then we bring in this female vocal, and once again, it's changing the frequency spectrum distribution, and we're rewarding the listener for sticking through it. So whereas they may have thought, oh, okay, I've heard the verse, that's what the verse is going to be like, we bring in this new element, we switch it up on them, and then we give them something different. So that's what we got going on right there. And then we drop into the second verse and see if you can hear what's different if you haven't already seen it. The Glocks. We have the Glockenspiel come in, and previous in the first hook, we don't have that at all. We bring it into this part. So now, once again, we're adding to the density. We're building a denser hook in this section, and we're adding another high-end element. So another thing, if you're unfamiliar, high-end elements, high-frequency elements, they tend to move in tandem with energy. So if you have more high end, you're going to have more energy in what's going on, even though, like I say, I ain't going to go too deep into it, but effectively just know that when you start to introduce more high end elements, it can give a feeling of more energy. And because we do literally have more going on in this section, it's more kinetically happening, more energy than in the first hook. So we're building on that. Now, this is when you can kind of come to that turning point in the story. So I have another riser that leads us in, and then we go into the breakdown. So I'll show you this. All right, so then what we do, we play with all those things we talked about. The density of our composition, the groove, as well as frequency distribution, because we basically then we drop all the elements out and we focus in on this part right here. We focus in on the guitar and the vocal. So this is primarily what we're hearing. So up to this point, we haven't had a guitar quite like this, so we're switching it up in that sense, and we're also switching up another vocal that has not been present up to this part in the song. And then we still have percussion elements going on, but we drop out the glockenspiel, we drop out the sticks, and then we affect the entire drum bus. And I'll have a video where I go more in depth on some intense mixing and the like. But effectively, I have a lot of these other parameters going on, and then I put it in a group, and then I automated the group to cut on in this segment. So if you watch it, and I'll bring the drums back in, you can hear it. So watch this. And so what that's doing is giving us that kind of that kind of lo-fi feel. I wanted it to kind of feel, you know, just nostalgic, but also kind of give it a feel of, you know, when you just bumping something down a country road, you know, and just hearing it kind of out the side. So anyway, you know, that's just a little effect I put in there. But all of this is building on the structure of the song. It's a story, you know. None of this would have the same effect if we didn't, you know, have it be so low end heavy and so, you know, just hectic earlier up into this part. So we do that, and then we bring them back into the final hook, and in the final hook we build even more, you know, from what we had prior. So in the final hook, we have these vocal elements that had not been present in any of the hooks thus far. Add high-end energy to it in terms of the frequency representation, as well as a higher level of density with the composition as well. So then, you know, we bring it back in. You know, and then you get to this part. So this is really, so then, you know, you really give the listener that payoff. So what is it that if you really had to, you know, give the composition an identity, what would that identity be? And to what degree do you allow your listener in on that identity? So yeah, I really do hope that y'all found this helpful in terms of how to structure your song. And as I did mention, this was definitely a bigger picture overview. Now, if you do want the structure one more time, it's intro 8 bars, verse, hook, breakdown, hook. And other than the breakdown, the intro, everything is 16 bars. And, you know, keeping in mind that your song, your production is a story. And it's up to you how you choose to go about telling that story. And when we're talking about music and electronic production and all of that, keeping in mind that density, groove, and frequency distribution are going to be some of the main ways that you affect how that story comes across to the listener. And, you know, try it out, play with some of these things. But I'll definitely be making some more videos going in more depth about some of the techniques from the mixing, automation, and all those sort of things to really bring it all together. But if you did find this video helpful, please hit the like button. It helps out tremendously. If you didn't find it helpful, hit that like button twice. Do that. And if you want to see more videos like this on music production and just creativity, then subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. That way you actually get notified, you know, YouTube and their algorithms. But anyway, so thanks y'all. It's been Sae'Von once again, and y'all get back to creating. All right. See y'all soon.